Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelenskyy is in Turkey's capital today. He held a news conference earlier saying he will be sending a delegation to Istanbul for peace talks with Russia. These will be the first direct talks since Russia invaded Ukraine in 2022. Zelenskyy previously said he would only participate if Russian President Vladimir Putin attended. The Kremlin has confirmed that Putin plans to skip the talks, while on board Air Force One earlier today, U.S. President Donald Trump said nothing will happen on Ukraine until he meets with Putin. So for more on this, we want to bring in William Taylor in Arlington, Virginia. He's a former U.S. ambassador to Ukraine, and he's also a distinguished fellow at the Atlantic Council's Eurasia Center. Ambassador Taylor, thank you for making time for us.
Arthi, thanks for having me.
Okay, I want to begin by getting your thoughts on President Putin's decision to not meet with President Zelenskyy in Turkey today. Did you see this coming?
So, Arthi, you've reported that this was President Putin's idea. President Putin felt like he had to do something. And so last weekend, in response to some real pressure brought by the Europeans and the Americans, President Putin tried to say, well, let's actually have these conversations in Turkey on Thursday, on today. And he didn't say whether or not he would show up. He implied that he might. And then for days and days, up until last night, there was big question as to whether or not he would actually come. So he was thinking about it. He put himself in a bind because when he announced those meetings or suggested those negotiations, President Zelenskyy said, fine, I'll be there. Let's see if you're going to be there, Vladimir Putin. And so that's where we are right now. So President Putin decided he's not going to come to talk about these. So he is clearly the problem for peace talks.
Okay, so when we've got Zelenskyy will no longer be there, he said that he will be sending a defense minister and he won't be talking to anyone unless it's Putin. Putin will not be there. And the U.S. president has said that nothing is going to happen on this front until he has talked with Putin. Is there realistically a path for peace? Is there realistically any progress or productivity that can come from these talks?
So what has to happen now is pressure on the Russians in order to get somewhere with these talks. There may be some conversations. So the Ukrainians have their defense minister there, and the defense minister, Mr. Umerov, is going to go to Istanbul and sound like he will have some conversations with a lower level delegation from Moscow that the Russians are sending. So that may be of some value, but it's not moving the ball forward because neither side is empowered to do this. You're exactly right. It's going to take President Putin and President Zelenskyy and probably President Trump to sit down. And the problem on that meeting is President Putin. It was Putin who decided he was not going to come. President Zelenskyy is already in Turkey. President Trump is already in the Middle East. It could have come, but it was Putin who said no.
When we take a look at the delegation that is intending to have talks, we know that the defense minister will lead the delegation from the Ukraine side. We're still waiting to perhaps hear some more details from the Russian side of it. What do you imagine those talks might look like? We know certainly that NATO has always been a point of contention.
So that will come up. NATO will come up, NATO membership. The Ukrainians have NATO membership in their constitution. That's not up for debate. With the Russians. The Russians don't like that, but they may not have a choice. But more specifically, this is going to be focused on ceasefire. The Ukrainians want to have a ceasefire with some confidence-building measures, bringing back some children, for example, before they get on to these broader issues like security guarantees and borders, temporary borders, and these kinds of things. Those will come. Those conversations will come. Right now, the focus on stopping the war. This is what President Trump has said over and over. He wants the war to stop. He wants the fighting to stop. That'll be the first order of business.
We know that this is going slowly, perhaps more slowly than certainly those impacted by this conflict would want for it to go, and certainly more slow than we've heard the U.S. president say that he would like for it to proceed, because he would like to have a hand in declaring a ceasefire or peace between these two countries as well. Do you think that there is room for him to shift what we're seeing in terms of these talks? Do you think there might be a last-minute change, or do you think it's sort of etched in now that we will not see these leaders, all three, meet during this particular trip?
Yeah, it's looking unlikely. It's not impossible. It's not impossible. But Putin may feel some pressure to show up after all. If he shows up, as I say, President Trump is in the area and President Zelenskyy is right there in Turkey. So it's possible, but it's up to Putin. It's up to Putin. It was his idea, and then he decided not to come. The others are ready to meet, but he apparently is not.
Well, we know we're dealing with unpredictability, so things could change, and hopefully we can have that discussion with you again when they do. Thank you for your time today.
Arthur, thank you very much for having me.
That was former U.S. Ambassador to Ukraine, William Taylor. He joined us today from Arlington, Virginia.